Kurt Bardella, NewsNation political contributor and Democratic strategist. Welcome both. Happy holidays. It's good to see you. And Kurt, I do want to start with you today. Axios is compiling this list of dozens of things that President-elect Trump has promised to address on his very first day in office. And we see on that list ending Russia's war in Ukraine, closing the southern border, terminating several Biden administration policies. It is a very long list. So, Kurt, how much can he actually do right away? Where do you expect him to start?
A lot of these things will be addressed through executive orders that the president-elect intends to issue within the first 24 hours of being in office. There's a lot of box checking going on. He's going to do some stuff to appeal to his MAGA base, do some stuff that will appeal to those who feel like the economy is headed in the wrong direction, that inflation is headed in the wrong direction. He's going to do some stuff that are going to, when I put box number 3, like I want to buy Greenland. It's just very Trump, and ultimately. Executive orders, there's only so far some of these can go. A lot of these initiatives I look at as mission statements more than they're actually going to take immediate effect and have immediate impact. Congress does have to weigh in. Congress has to fund a lot of these initiatives. There's going to be a budget conversation that will happen over the first 3 months of the new Congress with a very, very narrow House majority and a speaker that we'll see how that ends up going. So there'll be a lot of activity, a lot to talk about, but a lot of it is just mission statement oriented, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the budget conversation. I want to have that in just a moment. Nan, I want to bring you in first. Trump was elected, at least in part, because he wants to shake things up in Washington. How long do you think he has to deliver on some of these agenda items before voters will start to get impatient?
Well, it's a pretty tight timeline, and I think Kurt provided a great précis of what is possible for President Trump to do very immediately, which is all through executive orders. And that means whatever he can do through his direct management and purview over the executive branch of government. And that has primarily to do with changing the way regulations are followed, if you will, through the federal government. But there are plenty of issues that are going to require, and as Kurt said, the House and the Senate to agree, and the Republicans have very narrow majorities in both. Doesn't take a lot to throw off what might be consensus. So, in the House of Representatives, as I know well, reelect campaigns start happening in earnest in the second year of a 2-year, right? So we have about a year for very serious initiatives to be undertaken, and one hopes to succeed.
And Kurt, I want to revisit the budget conversation, specifically when it has to do with the border. NewsNation just spoke with Tom Homan, Trump's incoming border czar, about the mass deportation plans to come. Let's listen. This is what he had to say.
What price do you put on national security? I don't think it has a price tag. What price do you put on cases like Lake and Riley? What price do you put on the thousands of Asian moms and dads who buried their children? You want to talk about family separation? They buried their children because their children were murdered by illegal alien that wasn't supposed to be here. I don't put a price in that. I don't put a price on our national security. I don't put a price on American lives. This is what has to be done. The price tag is high, but in the long run, it saves the taxpayers a lot of money because we're paying right now billions of dollars in perpetuity.
How do you think this will land with budget hardliners in the Republican Party?
Well, again, I think that there is a healthy appetite to spend when it comes to national security, when it comes to border security. A lot of Republicans who got elected in this most recent election campaigned on securing the border, on using resources, directing them to achieve these initiatives. I do think that the danger, if there is any, it's that you have to also take care of the kitchen table economic issues, things like gas prices and cost of groceries and childcare. Like, these things have to run hand in hand in order for the voters to feel like I think the president-elect made good on his promises, which is why when you start talking about things like buying Greenland or Canada or the Panama Canal, it's like I get the posturing foreign policy-wise, why that makes sense, but you got to be really careful not to lean too hard into that because you'll look out of touch with the everyday American experience.
Yeah, the kitchen table issues are so important. And Nan, I want to ask about sort of the foil that we're seeing right now, because President Biden did this big call for unity in his final Christmas message from the White House. And then we see President-elect Trump striking a different tone. He is going right after his political rivals. He is talking about seizing Greenland and the Panama Canal. Is he missing an opportunity here to bring the country together?
I don't think so, Natasha. What he's talking about is what I think we've come to expect from President Trump, which is that he has this very bold and forward-thinking style that Americans did. A majority of Americans, popular vote, and obviously Electoral College, did say, you know what, we're ready for a change. A lot of Americans are very frustrated with the status quo, and they want to see a lot of tables turned over. Kurt is right that the kitchen table issues, hearth and home, can't be neglected, but I don't think they will be, because President Trump's agenda focuses on energy development, and that materially affects everything in our cost of living. So that is going to help us if we can bring energy costs down for the public. If we can, and that's certainly going to be the goal, is to cut regulations that cost time and money, reduce opportunities, cause a lot of suffering where they're unnecessary, and making sure that inflation continues to diminish. That's a challenge if we have a lot of federal expenditures to make, but it depends on their being made. And what I think the Trump administration is going to seek to do, and the Republicans, is to stop the so-called investment agenda that has deprived the private opportunities, and not only that, but cost us tremendously, and concentrate on things that only the federal government can do, like defense, like foreign policy, and border sovereignty.
Okay, and Speaking of foreign policy, Kurt, the president-elect, again inviting Canada to become America's 51st state. He floated hockey legend Wayne Gretzky to be the next prime minister of Canada, or soon to be known as governor of Canada, as he put it. How will this sort of trolling be received by our allies?
I mean, I think it's just, again, that's what it is. It's trolling. And if you are a grown-up leader in the world, you should just brush it off. Don't take the bait. This is a negotiating tactic. This is something that Donald Trump has oftentimes talked about in terms of how he approaches deal-making and strategy. Nobody actually believes Canada would become the 51st state. Frankly, that would be a terrible thing for the Republican Party, because Canada being much more progressive than the United States of America, those two Senate seats would all of a sudden be very problematic for the Republican Party. So this is just posturing and negotiating.